You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Welcome to episode 66 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. All month long, we are discussing life after loss. In today's episode, we have Alishia Anderson, who shares her stillbirth story and her new memoir, Still Here, a memoir of love, loss, and triumph after stillbirth. On January 15, 2016, at 28 weeks pregnant, Alishia went in for a routine ultrasound when she was told her son no longer had a heartbeat. In a matter of seconds, her world was flipped upside down. They were given a day to process the news and then went to the hospital the very next day to deliver their stillborn son. After 3 days of labor, she gave birth to her angel, Derrek Jerrell Anderson Jr., also known as DJ, on Monday, January 18, 2016. Alishia went on to have her rainbow baby Grayson after working on herself for over a year. This episode is for you to listen to if you've ever experienced a stillbirth and are still on your own healing journey and are unsure what life really looks like after loss for you. I apologize in advance for the quality of the audio in this interview, but please still listen as there were so many gems dropped on life after loss. Here is Alishia Anderson. So welcome, Alishia, to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'd like to begin with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. So right now I am a stay-at-home mommy. We recently moved to California from Georgia in January. So I'm a new Californian.
Awesome.
But as far as myself, I've been married for 6 years. My husband and I dated long distance until we got married. So we got married in 2012, and then in August of 2015, I found out I was expected. So it took us 3 years or so to actually even consider having children, because we just kind of wanted to enjoy each other because we have been long distance our entire courtship, and just wanted to enjoy the married life before we put children into the equation. So when I was pregnant, I was kind of thrown off because we weren't planning on it. I had talked to my doctor, and I was on birth control at the time. And, I'm thinking about possibly starting to try to have children. And she said, yeah, it'll probably take about a year once you get off birth control. So that was a month prior to me finding out I was pregnant. So I found out a month after I got off birth control. And so from there, our journey started. So everything was going well. I had a very chill type of pregnancy, no morning sickness, none of that. It was just really, really pleasant. All our families were excited. It was going to be the first grandchild on my husband's side. And then I'm the youngest of three, the only girl. And so this was my first child. And so my family was excited, and, everything was going well. We had our gender reveal shortly after 20 weeks, when we found out we were having a boy. And everything was going well. And then on my 28-week appointment, I was supposed to do my glucose test to make sure that I didn't have gestational diabetes. So I took the drink and everything, and they had me come back to the ultrasound room. They said, we're going to do your ultrasound, and then we're going to check you to make sure everything's going well, so we can check to see if you have the diabetes. And so we went back to the ultrasound room, just kind of a typical regular day. And the ultrasound technician strapped me up, put the cold little gel on my stomach, and she started going through looking at my son. And from there, I could tell something was a little off, because she just kept saying, you don't have a lot of fluid around you. And being my first child, I didn't really know what that meant. But I still was like, okay, just thinking maybe if I drank more water or, just figuring that it was something that I can correct. So she kind of just kept going. She kind of breezed past that little comment, but it stuck in my mind. And she just kind of abruptly stopped once she got past a few little points where she was examining me. She said, I'll be right back. I want to go talk to the doctor to see if she can come in and kind of check with your fluid. And so my husband and I were talking while she left the room, and I just felt really eerie. I didn't feel good about her leaving because in our 20-week ultrasound, it wasn't so much fanfare. And so when she came back, she said, I'm going to clean you up and I'm going to send you to the doctor across the hall. And so once we got across the hall, there was 2 doctors in there, and I knew from that scene that it was not going to be good. And so the doctors pulled us in and just said, unfortunately, we were when the ultrasound technician was doing the ultrasound, she could not locate a heartbeat. Obviously, she couldn't tell you that because it's against the law. We wanted to share that with you, and I broke completely down. My husband, God bless him, just kind of held me and like, everything's going to be okay. After that, I pretty much kind of blanked out as far as what was going on. And they left the room and gave us a little minute to kind of process what they said. And they were like, we'll come back in about 15 minutes. And I just broke down in my husband's arms, and he's like, we're going to be okay. God has a plan for us. He's not going to leave us right now. And so once we kind of tried to get ourselves together, the doctors returned and kind of told us our options as far as delivery, because I was 28 weeks at that time. So they were like, you are going to have to deliver him, but you can either do it today, which it was a Friday. So that was January 15th of 2016. And they said that I can deliver on that day. They said I can deliver anytime that weekend, or I can wait until my body just went into labor naturally. And I didn't want to do it that exact day just because I was still kind of in shock. And so my husband and I decided we would go home, kind of get some rest, let our families know, and then we would come back that Saturday, the day after, to actually go into labor, because they said they can induce my labor. And so that was what we decided to do. So that was the beginning half of our journey. When we got home, we kind of just embraced. We sat down and just kind of were still in unbelief. I had my husband call both sides of our parents. He called them one by one and just kind of let them know what the doctor said. And then they did the heavy lifting to let our family members know what was going on, so that we didn't have to keep calling people and telling them the story. And then we ended up grabbing some food and we prayed. And then I just went into my room and cried and journaled until my hands got tired. And then I said a prayer to God that he would just grant us peace during our journey of delivery. And I tried to get some rest that night. But it was just a bombshell that we were not ready for. We were not expecting. And then the next day, that Saturday, the 16th, we went into the hospital. I did not prepare because I didn't know what to expect. So I didn't bring any bag or anything like that. It was just, I had my phone and an iPad, and that was it. And my husband checked me in, and then the hospital ended up putting us in a room. They were expecting us because my doctor's office had called and let them know we were coming. So the room was already set up. And one thing I really appreciated about the hospital that we were in, they ended up putting up a little card outside my door with a fallen leaf. And that just represented that the family is going through loss. So for doctors and nurses and just anybody who entered the room to be a little more sensitive on how they communicated to me about the baby or things like that. So I really appreciated that. And from there, the nurse kind of let us know what was going to be going on during our stay. They gave me some medicine to try to induce me, but nothing was happening. So it took about 3 days for me to finally go into labor. And I finally had my son, Derrek Jerrell Anderson Jr., or also known as DJ, on the 18th of January of 2016. And so that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of our story of loss.
So tell us the journey after it. Really, how did it impact your faith in God and your relationship with your husband?
So one thing that I just know God's hand was on this situation, because at our hospital stay, we were there 3 days. And so the nursing staff that we were granted was absolutely amazing. My main nurse, she just really put her arms around us and told us the real life truths of what loss will look like once we left. Because when you're in a hospital, it's like a bubble. Everybody kind of knows what's going on there. They've dealt with these types of situations, so they're able to prepare you, while you're there. But usually people don't tell you the aftermath of you having your baby, you actually delivering and seeing your baby. And then you have to go out into the real world where people just don't understand what's going on. And so she let us know to, first and foremost, to cling to one another. She let us know that men and women grieve very differently after loss, and that she's seen it with her own eyes, where loss can really either bring you close together or it can tear you apart in ways that you're not expecting. And so she just told us to allow each other the space we needed, but to also cling for dear life to one another, and that we could get through anything if we just clung together. So that was huge for us. And then just when I prayed about having peace over the situation, God truly delivered in that moment. He really gave me a calm like none other. I can't even explain it, but it was just something about us that when we were in that hospital, he put his hands all over us. And I am so grateful for that. And then she just really told us that people may be uncomfortable around us just because loss is just not something people are used to talking about. It's very taboo. And so that we would face people that may say things that were, insensitive, or people may just turn their backs on us altogether, not because they didn't love us, but that they just felt uncomfortable and didn't know how to approach the situation. So her giving us those little pep talks and dropping those little jewels really helped us when we transitioned outside of the hospital. And so I could tell that I was up and down for those first few months after, and my husband was kind of just like a steady rock. He was always there when I needed him. He gave me space when I needed it. He pulled me close when he felt me breaking down. I could not ask for a better helpmate. And just, I will say my faith in God never wavered. I could not understand why. I was like, Lord, you're going to have to show me the why, because I just don't see it. This is ridiculous. I don't understand why you would take such a precious life. And, there's just nothing like that feeling of loss for a parent to lose a child. And so that part, I didn't turn my back on God, but I had so many questions. There were so many nights. We had some real conversations on just feeling alone and abandoned. But through it all, he was right there with me, even down in the trenches when I felt like I couldn't, see another day. He was right there with me, just holding me. And I do appreciate that strong faith and connection that I had with God through this time. So
awesome.
Yes.
So tell us about your trying again journey and your journey to your rainbow baby.
Okay, so we weren't necessarily trying to have another one. We just kind of said, in God's timing, we'll do it when we're ready. And so after my 6-week appointment and everything, they said everything was fine. We just said, we'll take it easy. And it ended up being, I went home. I'm originally from Michigan. So I went home for an event, and I wasn't feeling the best. And so I was like, let me just take a pregnancy test. And at this time, my husband was on a work trip in Alaska, so we weren't even in the same place. But I'm like, let me take a pregnancy test. I ended up taking a test and found out I was pregnant. And so I was thrown off guard. It was another August. So I found out I was pregnant with my first son in August. And then I found out I was pregnant again a year later that August, so 2016. And it was just, I didn't know what to do. So I texted my husband and I'm like, I am pregnant. And so he's like, okay. And our first pregnancy, we didn't tell our families until after our first trimester. So it was like holding a grenade, just to tell them, because my husband's like, we have to wait. We have to make sure we get past the first trimester, blah, blah, blah. So the second go round, I was like, we need to tell somebody right away so that we can have the love and support and the energy, good vibes that we need to make it through these next 40 weeks. And so I ended up telling my parents while I was home, and they prayed with me. My dad is a pastor, so he was just like, we are going to get to the other side of this time. Like we are decreeing and declaring God is going to bless you. So we told them, and then my husband called his parents and let them know. And then we called our brothers and let them know. And those were the only people that we told that we were expecting. And then we kind of found out what we were having. We went through our 20 weeks, but I was just full of anxiety. Those first, I would say up to my 28-week appointment, when I lost my son, those first 28 weeks were a struggle. I didn't want to get too attached to my rainbow baby, because I was like, if something were to happen, I can't bear it. I don't think I can take it again. And I just was so nervous, such high anxiety. But my mom had recommended a book, and it was called the 4-8 Principle. And the subtitle is The Secret to a Joy-Filled Life by Tommy Newberry. And that book transformed my mind and just the energy towards my rainbow baby. There was one part in the book that has stuck with me since, and it was just saying you can't want something but have the thought pattern for something else. So you can't say, I want a healthy, beautiful, bouncing baby, but in your mind you're like, this baby's not going to make it, or I lost my first baby. He's like, those two thoughts just cannot exist together. You're going to have to side with one of those thoughts. And from that moment on, I just was like, I'm not going to let the loss of my first son, my angel baby, dictate how I feel about this new life that I'm creating. And so from that 20-week period on until I delivered, my mindset just kind of switched, and I was fully locked in and engaged and ready for, the rainbow baby. But he ended up coming early. He came 6 weeks early. And so we had to kind of deal with those issues. He stayed in the NICU for about a week because he came out at 34 weeks, and his breathing was a little irregular. When I went into labor, everything was fine, but he came out and he was struggling to breathe. And so the nursing staff didn't want to alert me. So they're like, we're just going to take him to the NICU for a little bit to watch him. And that 1 hour turned into a week. And so I had to kind of get my feelings in check for that. I had planned to do like the skin to skin and to nurse him, but none of that happened because he was in the NICU. And so just the thoughts of what you feel like mommyhood should be and the reality sometimes do not match up. That's just kind of something that I had to learn through my 2 different pregnancies.
Awesome.
Are you unsure how to begin to heal after loss? Are you feeling stuck in your grief? Are the things around you triggering you back to those dark moments? Please join us nightly during October 15th through 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be discussing life after loss. We will begin to challenge ourselves daily with prayer, meditating on God's word, and healing ourselves after loss. Join us as we discuss facing your pain, self-care after loss, journaling your pain to purpose, and life after loss. To register for this free online summit, go to ericamcafee.com/summit. That's ericamcafee.com/SUMMIT to sign up for this powerful online healing. I hope to see you all there.
So let's talk about parenting after loss. So now that you have your rainbow baby,
yes,
how do you feel you are as a parent since you've had a loss and now you actually have your rainbow?
Parenting is a joy and it's also a challenge. And just to see my son, sometimes I look and say, man, I wonder what DJ would be doing at this moment, or my rainbow baby's name is Grayson. So just to see Grayson hit those different milestones, he's currently 17 months. And just to think about where DJ would have been sometimes gets me. But I just have such a deep love for Grayson just because I know the alternative, and he really is like a light. He just brought a certain light to our family after loss. Like my husband, when I was pregnant with DJ, our first, he was like, God had to teach me some lessons because when we were expecting, we were going to change his office into the nursery. He was like, oh, I really don't. I need my office, my at-home office, and I need this. And he was like, I felt like I was just being so selfish. And so he said through the loss, it just really taught him to live in the moment, to be grateful for those things, that the blessing that children are, because there's an alternative where they can't, they could be taken away, and we had to face that harsh reality. So just being grateful and thankful to have the option to actually be a parent.
Awesome. So let's talk about the resources and tools. You mentioned a book earlier. So were there any other books or resources or tools or podcasts that you listened to or that you reached for during your healing journey?
So initially, I didn't know that there was so many people that had been through loss. And so I ended up, when I was in the hospital, they gave us a lot of information about, we had stillbirth. So they just gave us information about stillbirths, and they actually gave us a list of Facebook, different groups that were on Facebook. So I started out there just because I had no idea where to turn to initially. And so those groups help for a little bit just to be able to see that I'm not going crazy, that, some of the feelings of, disappointment or anger or even sadness or, even sometimes those glimmers of joy that you get, just thinking about baby, your angel baby, that I wasn't alone. And so those groups helped me initially just to see that there was a network of families out there who either were going through the same thing or had been through the same thing, and just to see where they were in their different grief journeys helped me. But even as a Christian, and even with my connection through God, and even having a strong village of people to help me, I still felt like I wasn't getting better. And so, I would definitely suggest, if you feel like you're not getting there, if like it's something missing, to seek out some type of additional help. So I was in school at the time, getting my second bachelor's. And so our school ended up having a counseling department, and I was able to get 10 free sessions through my tuition with a counselor who helped me tremendously. And that was my first time seeking counseling. And so I was kind of nervous about that, but she ended up being a godsend as well, just kind of helping me mentally break down what was going on through grief and how I was exhibiting the grief, through my everyday life. So those were two major things. And then I ended up finding Janelle, who is another baby loss mom, who I believe she was on your podcast early when you first started. I met her at a blogging conference a few years prior to me having my loss, and just her reconnecting with her and just letting her know about my loss. And then eventually she helped when I was going through my rainbow baby situation, because she had just had her rainbow baby as well. She just helped me tremendously kind of start to navigate, those different points from loss to going to being a rainbow mom. So those were a few of the resources that I used.
Awesome. Yes, Janelle was back on episode 4. Like, she was way in the beginning of the podcast. Yes, I love Janelle. Shout you out, Janelle.
Yes, and it's actually funny the way that I found you. Through Janelle's little network of baby loss moms, I met another girl, Renee, and Yes. So she's from Michigan, and
she is. Right.
We actually connected through Instagram. So, I always say, if you can and you feel up to it, share your story, because you just never know who you will touch. And Renee heard my podcast, and we ended up, because I was on Janelle's podcast, and we ended up talking, and we've just kind of connected through that. We have like a baby loss friendship. So I met her for the first time in person this summer over lunch, and she's the one that told me about your podcast.
Awesome. Yes. I love Renee. And actually, me and Renee, by the time this podcast airs, it'll already happen, but I am going to do a meetup in Detroit, and she's organizing it. Yeah, she's doing a Sisters in Laws meetup in Detroit. And so we're going to meet in person as well in a few weeks in August.
That is so amazing.
I'm excited to meet Renee, and she's going to be on a podcast in a future episode. So look out. Shout out to Janelle and Renee.
Yes. But
that's so funny.
I just appreciate it. It's almost kind of like this little underground railroad of baby lost moms. But I appreciate just to have the support of so many moms who have gone through, similar situations, and just to know that there's that backing of love and support and understanding. So.
Awesome. So what encouraging words can you leave the mom who has experienced the loss and is looking to try again?
I would just say, number one, stay connected to your higher power, to God, be fervent in your prayers and what it is that you want, and stay on your knees, in prayer, just to kind of keep your mind sane, but also just to take each day one at a time and give yourself grace. There's going to be days when you feel like you may not be able to take on another child just after the weight of grief, but you will get there, and just taking it one day at a time is essential. And like I said, give yourself grace, because there are going to be days when you revert back and you're going to be like, why should I even have to do this? I had a perfectly, healthy baby growing inside me that I lost. So why should I have to do this again? But, there is blessings on the other side of that grief. And, you just take it one day at a time. So.
Awesome. So where can we connect with you after this episode? Where can we find you on social media?
So actually, I am working on a book right now. So it should be out in October. The book is called Still Here, and it will be available on Amazon. So probably, I don't know when this episode will air. The launch date is, I'm planning for October 15th during Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. So my website is going to be www.aliandenterprise.com. So you can find me there. And then I'll also be on social media under those same handles as well.
Awesome. So since we have you here, go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your book.
Yes, so it's called Still Here, and the subtitle is A Memoir of Love, Loss, and Triumph After Stillbirth. And it's just kind of my journey. It took me 2 years to write. So I started writing and kind of adapted from some journal writings that I had been doing when I initially lost DJ, up to the point of me now as a rainbow mom, and just kind of my different stages of grief. You kind of see it because I wrote it within 2 years. So the beginning is more the raw, like first hand feelings of what it feels like after that initial loss. And then throughout the book, you kind of get to see the progress of what loss and grief looks like once you're a little further removed from it. And one thing that I thought was pretty neat was that my husband also wrote a chapter from the male perspective, because they're kind of a silenced partner in the loss story or journey. A lot of times we hear from moms a lot, but we don't get to hear the male's perspective. And just me reading his chapter was very eye-opening for me as the wife, but just as the mom, to see from a grieving dad's perspective. So those are a few things that are in the book. And then I also talk about my rainbow journey and how that's affected me as a mom today. So
awesome. So thank you so much, Alishia, for being on the podcast and sharing your story. and your new book. I'm excited to read it and download it. So I'll make sure I leave all the links in the description box so you all can follow her and then get the news on her new book that's coming out this upcoming October.
Yes, thank you so much again for having me. And I thank you for having this platform for women to share their story. That is absolutely a blessing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I pray that this show was inspirational and a blessing to you. For show notes, visit ericamcafee.com/podcast. Please join us in our offline discussions in our private Facebook group by going to sistersinloss.com. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please rate and subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. I pray that you all have a blessed week. Keep the faith, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.